Captain Jake Murphy walked onto the bridge of his ship. The UES Nightfall was not like any other warship in the human fleet. The walls hummed with a strange energy that made his teeth ache. Even after 6 months as captain, the sound still made him nervous. "Status report," Jake said to his crew. Lisa Barnes looked up from her station. She was the chief engineer, and her face was pale. "The quantum drive is stable, sir. But the readings are still impossible. According to every law of physics I know, this ship should not exist." Jake nodded. He had heard this before. The Nightfall was humanity's greatest secret and greatest weapon. It used something called quantum lock technology. Dr. Alex Rivera had built it in a secret lab on Mars. Even Alex could not fully explain how it worked. "The ship exists in many places at once," Alex had told Jake during training. "Until someone looks at it directly, it can be anywhere and nowhere. It is like a ghost that can choose when to become real." Jake did not understand the science. He only knew that the Nightfall could do things that other ships could not. It could appear and disappear. It could fire weapons from angles that made no sense. Enemy ships would shoot at empty space while the Nightfall struck from behind. "Sir, incoming message from Earth Command," said Tony Wells. He was the communications officer. His hands shook as he worked at his console. Being on the Nightfall affected everyone differently. Some crew members got headaches. Others saw things that were not there. Tony heard voices from conversations that had not happened yet. "Put it through," Jake said. Admiral Clark's face appeared on the main screen. His expression was grim. "Captain Murphy, we have a situation. The Hegemony Coalition has attacked 3 human colonies in the past week. They are moving toward Earth space." Jake felt his stomach drop. The Hegemony Coalition was a group of alien races that wanted to destroy humanity. They saw humans as a threat that needed to be eliminated. The Coalition had ships, weapons, and soldiers that were far beyond human technology, except for the Nightfall. "What are your orders, sir?" Jake asked. "Stop them," Admiral Clark said. "The Nightfall is our only hope. We cannot fight them with normal ships. You and your crew are all that stands between humanity and extinction." The transmission ended. Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. They were all young, all volunteers. They had signed up knowing they might never see home again. The quantum lock technology was too dangerous for long missions. No one knew what it would do to the human body over time. Helen Price was the navigator. She sat at her station with her eyes closed. "I can see the paths," she whispered, "so many paths. The Coalition fleet is 3 days away. They have 47 ships. No, wait, 48. The numbers keep changing." This was another effect of the quantum drive. Helen could see probability lines stretching into the future. She could see what might happen before it happened. But the visions were not always clear. Sometimes she saw things that never came true. "Dr. Rivera, how long can we stay in quantum lock?" Jake asked. Alex Rivera stood near the science station. He was a thin man with gray hair and tired eyes. The longest test was 6 hours. After that, the crew started experiencing severe side effects. Memory loss, confusion, temporal displacement. "What does that mean?" asked Ryan Cole. He was the weapons officer, a former Marine who had volunteered for the mission. "It means weak tombs might start remembering things that have not happened yet," Alex said, "or forgetting things that have already happened. The human brain is not designed to exist in multiple quantum states." Jake made his decision. "Set course for the Coalition fleet. We leave in 1 hour." The crew began preparing for departure. Lisa Barnes ran final checks on the quantum drive. Tony Wells sent coded messages to other human ships, warning them to stay away from the battle zone. Helen Price plotted courses through space-time that only she could see. Dr. Rivera approached Jake privately. Captain, there is something you need to know. The quantum lock system is not just a weapon. It is changing us. Every time we use it, we become a little less human and a little more something else. What do you mean? Jake asked. The quantum field affects our consciousness. We are becoming connected to the ship in ways I do not fully understand. Some of the crew are already showing signs of quantum entanglement with the ship systems. Jake looked at his crew. They were good people, brave people. They had volunteered to save humanity, but they were paying a price that no one had expected. Is there a way to reverse it? Jake asked. Alex shook his head. I do not know. This is all new territory. We are the first humans to experience quantum consciousness. We might be the first step in human evolution, or we might be the last crew of a failed experiment. The nightfall began to move. As the quantum drive engaged, Jake felt reality shift around him. For a moment, he saw multiple versions of the bridge. In one, he was giving orders to attack. In another, he was dead. In a third, the ship was empty and drifting in space. And the vision stopped. The nightfall was moving through space toward the Coalition fleet, but it was not moving like a normal ship. It was sliding between dimensions, existing in several places at once. The crew could feel it in their bones. Contact with the enemy in 2 hours, Helen said. Her voice sounded distant, as if she was speaking from another room. Jake sat in his captain's chair and waited. In 2 hours they would find out if the nightfall was truly humanity's salvation or its doom. Either way, there was no turning back. Now, the quantum-locked human warship was going to war, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Coalition patrol fleet hung in space like deadly metal flowers. Admiral Kethfer of the Zephyrian Navy watched the displays on his command ship. His 6 arms moved across control panels as he studied the sensor readings. Nothing on long range. Scans, reported his tactical officer. The human colonies we destroyed sent no distress calls. Their fleet should not know we are here, Kethfer nodded. The Coalition had been at war with humanity for 2 years. The humans were clever but weak. Their ships were slow and their weapons were primitive. The Coalition had better technology and more ships. Victory was certain. Sir, strange reading on Sector 7, called another officer. Kethfer looked at the display. There was nothing there. Empty space. But the sensors showed something impossible. A ship that was there and not there at the same time. System malfunction, Kethfer decided. Run a diagnostic. The diagnostic came back normal, but the readings continued. Something was approaching their fleet, something that made no sense. Aboard the Nightfall, Jake Murphy watched the Coalition ships on his main screen. They were beautiful in a deadly way. Sleek and fast with weapons that could destroy a human city in seconds. 49 ships, Helen Price whispered. Her eyes were closed and she was seeing probability streams. No, 48. The numbers keep changing because we are changing them by being here. Dr. Rivera monitored the quantum drive. The field is stable, but we are causing space-time distortions. The enemy sensors probably cannot get a clear reading on us. Lisa Barnes called from engineering. Captain, we are existing in 17 different quantum states right now. If we engage the enemy, that number will increase. I do not know what will happen to the crew. Jake made his choice. All hands, battle stations. Prepare to engage the enemy. The Nightfall moved forward. But it did not move like a normal ship. It flickered in and out of existence. Sometimes it was there, sometimes it was not. The Coalition sensors went crazy trying to track it. Fire. Kethver ordered. The Coalition ships opened fire with everything they had. Plasma beams and missile swarms filled space where the Nightfall should have been, but their weapons hit nothing. The human ship was there 1 second and gone the next. Impossible, Kethfer muttered. Ships cannot simply disappear. Then the Nightfall fired back. Ryan Cole pressed the weapon controls. The ship's guns fired from a position that should not exist. The beams came from 3 different angles at once, striking the Coalition ships from directions that made no sense. 3. Coalition ships exploded in seconds. Their shields could not stop weapons that attacked from multiple quantum states. The remaining ships tried to return fire, but they were shooting at ghosts. "What is that thing?" screamed a Coalition captain. Over the radio, Kethfer had no answer. He had fought humans before. Their ships were predictable. They followed the laws of physics. But this ship was breaking every rule of reality. The Nightfall struck again. This time it appeared inside the Coalition formation, firing at point blank range before vanishing again. 5 more ships died in the space of heartbeats. On the Nightfall, the crew was paying the price for their impossible victory. Tony Wells held his head in his hands. "I can hear transmissions from ships that are already dead," he said. "They are calling for help that will never come." Helen Price opened her eyes. Blood ran from her nose. "I can see all the ways this battle ends. In most of them, we win. But the cost keeps getting higher." Jake felt something changing inside his mind. He could sense the ship around him in ways that should not be possible. The Nightfall was becoming part of him, or he was becoming part of it. Dr. Rivera watched his instruments with growing alarm. "Captain, the quantum field is affecting our brain patterns. We are starting to think in multiple dimensions. Our consciousness is expanding beyond normal human limits." The battle continued. The Coalition fleet tried everything. They used gravity, weapons, and temporal disruptors. They fired at every possible position where the Nightfall might appear. Nothing worked. The human ship was not just faster or stronger. It was operating on principles that the Coalition could not understand. It existed in probability rather than reality. It was everywhere and nowhere, striking from angles that did not exist in normal space. Kate Adams worked the gun controls with hands that seemed to belong to someone else. She could see the enemy ships before they appeared on sensors. She could feel their fear through the quantum field. The Coalition crews were terrified of something they could not comprehend. "Sir, enemy admiral is requesting communication," Tony Wells reported. "Put him through," Jake said. Admiral Kethfer's alien face appeared on screen. His usual calm was gone. "What are you?" he demanded. "What kind of demon ship is this?" Jake looked at the alien commander. "We are human. And you made the mistake of threatening our people." "This is not possible," Kethfer said. "Ships cannot exist in multiple places. Weapons cannot fire from empty space. You are violating the fundamental laws of the universe." "We are not violating anything," Jake replied. "We are rewriting the rules." The communication ended. Jake turned to his crew. They looked different now. Their eyes held depths that had not been there before. They were changing, becoming something more than human, or perhaps something less. "Finish them," Jake ordered. The Nightfall struck one final time. It appeared simultaneously at 17 different positions around the Coalition fleet. Every ship was targeted at once. The quantum weapons fired from angles that existed in parallel dimensions. The entire Coalition patrol fleet died in that single moment. 48 ships reduced to cosmic dust by weapons that should not exist, but the victory came with a cost. Dr. Sam Foster, the ship's medical officer, ran scans on the crew. "Captain, we are all showing signs of quantum poisoning. Our cellular structure is becoming unstable. We are existing in too many states at once." Jake felt the truth of those words in his bones. They had won the battle, but they were no longer entirely human. The quantum field was changing them on a fundamental level. They were becoming something new, something that existed partially outside normal reality. Set course for the next coalition fleet, Jake ordered Dot as the nightfall disappeared. Into quantum space, leaving only wreckage behind, word began to spread through the coalition. There was a human ship that could not be fought, a ghost that killed without being seen, a weapon that broke the laws of physics. Fear, the most powerful weapon of all, began to spread through enemy ranks. The humans had created something impossible, and now it was hunting them through the darkness of space. The Coalition High Command meeting took place on the fortress world of Drakmor. Representatives from 12 alien species sat around a massive table. The air was thick with tension and fear. "Show them the recording," ordered High Commander Vexthal. The holographic display came to life. It showed the destruction of Admiral Kethfer's fleet. The alien commanders watched in silence as 48 ships died in impossible ways. Weapons appeared from empty space. A ship flickered in and out of existence like a bad dream. "This cannot be real," said General Mordak of the Hegemony Core Fleet. "Our scientists have reviewed this footage. It shows violations of basic physics. Ships do not exist in multiple places at once." "Tell that to the dead crews," Vexthal replied. "We have lost 6 fleets to this ghost ship. Our best commanders are afraid to leave port." An insectoid delegate clicked his mandibles nervously. "Perhaps we should reconsider our war with the humans. If they have developed this technology, no." Vexthal slammed his fist on the table. "Humanity is a cancer that must be cut out. They are too dangerous to be allowed to spread. We increase our attacks on their colonies. Force them to recall this demon ship." Meanwhile, aboard the Nightfall, Dr. Alex Rivera was discovering disturbing truths about their quantum technology. He sat in his laboratory, staring at brain scans that defied medical understanding. "Captain, we need to talk," Alex said over the intercom. Jake Murphy arrived at the lab looking tired. His face had changed over the past weeks. His eyes held depths that seemed to look through multiple dimensions at once. "What is it, Doc?" Jake asked. Alex pointed to the brain scans on his screen. "These are readings from the crew. Look at the neural patterns. They are not entirely human anymore." Jake studied the strange, swirling patterns. "What do you mean?" "The quantum field is rewriting our brain structure. We are developing new neural pathways that allow us to process information from multiple dimensions simultaneously. Helen can see probability streams because her mind is becoming quantum entangled with space-time itself." Jake felt a chill. "Are we dying?" "I do not know," Alex admitted. "We might be evolving into something beyond human understanding, or we might be slowly losing our minds. The line between the two is becoming very thin." In the navigation station, Helen Price was experiencing the truth of Alex's words. She could see the paths of probability stretching out before them like golden threads. But the visions were becoming stronger, more real than reality itself. "I can see the coalition's next move," she whispered to herself. "They will attack the colony on Kepler Prime. 3,000 civilians will die unless we stop them." Jake received Helen's warning and made his decision. "Plot a course for Kepler Prime. Maximum quantum displacement." Lisa Barnes worked frantically. "In engineering." "Captain, the quantum drive is showing stress fractures. We are pushing it beyond safe limits. If it fails while we are in quantum lock, we might be scattered across multiple dimensions." "How long do we have?" Jake asked. "Maybe 6 more jumps before total system failure," Lisa replied. The Nightfall arrived at Kepler Prime just as the Coalition attack fleet dropped out of hyperspace. This time, the enemy was ready. They had deployed their most elite forces, The Void Hunters, cybernetically enhanced warriors with quantum-resistant armor. Impressive, said Void Hunter Commander Zarkith as he studied his sensors. The Human. Ship registers on our enhanced scanners. We can see it in all its quantum states simultaneously. The battle began differently this time. The Coalition forces spread out, firing at every possible position where the Nightfall might appear. They're quantum-resistant. Weapons could actually hit the ship in its multiple states. Jake felt the first enemy hit like a punch to his soul. Damage report. Hull breach on Deck 7, Lisa called out. The quantum field is destabilizing. We are being forced into fewer quantum states. For the first time since the war began, the Nightfall was taking real damage. But Jake was no longer the same man who had started this mission. The quantum field had changed him, given him new ways of thinking. All crew, prepare for quantum phase transition, Jake announced. Dr. Rivera looked up in alarm. Captain, that is theoretical. We have never tested. Do it, Jake ordered. What happened next changed everything. The Nightfall did not just shift between quantum states, it shifted the crew themselves. Ryan Cole found himself existing in multiple versions simultaneously. He could fire weapons from several quantum positions at once. Kate Adams became a probability storm of destruction. Her consciousness spread across 17 different quantum states, each one controlling different weapon systems. The Coalition. Ships found themselves under attack from weapons that existed in parallel dimensions. The most dramatic change happened to Tony Wells. His consciousness merged partially with the ship's communication systems. He could hear the thoughts and fears of every enemy crew member. He whispered their darkest terrors back to them through their own communication channels. This is impossible, Commander Zarkith screamed as his elite forces died around him. Humans cannot exist in quantum superposition. Living beings have fixed quantum states. But the crew of the Nightfall was no longer entirely human. They had become something new, something that existed partially outside normal reality. They were living weapons that could strike from dimensions that did not technically exist. The battle ended with the complete destruction of the Teed strike from dimensions that did not technically exist. The battle ended with the complete destruction of the TDS that could strike from destruction of the T-Denza did not technically exist. Coalition's most elite fleet, but the victory came at a terrible cost. When the crew returned to normal space, they found that some of them could not fully return to their original quantum state. Dr. Sam Foster ran medical scans with shaking hands. Captain, 3 crew members are stuck in quantum flux. They exist in multiple states simultaneously. I can see them, but I can touch them sometimes, and sometimes I cannot. Jake looked at his crew. They were heroes, but they were no longer human. They had become something beyond mortal understanding. The quantum field had rewritten their very existence. Sir, Helen Price said, her voice echoing from several dimensions at once. I can see the future now, all possible futures. The Coalition is planning something terrible. They are going to deploy their doomsday weapon against Earth. Jake felt the weight of command like never before. His crew was becoming less human with each battle, but they were still the only hope humanity had. The war was escalating beyond anything anyone had imagined. Set course for Earth, Jake ordered. It is time to end this war, no matter what it costs us. As the Nightfall prepared to jump to quantum space, Jake realized that they were no longer just fighting for humanity's survival. They were fighting to remain human themselves. But with each battle, that became less and less possible. The quantum locked. Warship disappeared into the space between dimensions, carrying its transformed crew toward a final confrontation that would determine the fate of both humanity and reality itself. News of the Nightfall's victory spread across the galaxy like wildfire. On the neutral world of Centauri Station, alien diplomats gathered in emergency session. The footage they watched made their blood run cold. Ambassador Yelthar of the Peaceful Eldorian Republic spoke first. We have monitored every battle. This human ship does not just win. It makes victory look inevitable from the moment it arrives. How is this possible? Their quantum technology breaks the fundamental laws of reality, explained Dr. Zixmoth, the galaxy's leading physicist. According to our analysis, they have weaponized probability itself. They attack from quantum states that should not exist. In the corner of the room, Ambassador Creven from the Neutral Trade Alliance shivered. My scientists went insane trying to understand their battle recordings. The mathematics required to predict that ships' behavior are so complex that they shatter minds. The debate continued for hours. Some species wanted to join the coalition against humanity. Others wanted to surrender immediately. A few suggested making contact with the humans to understand their technology, but all of them felt the same emotion, fear. Meanwhile, aboard the Nightfall, that fear was taking its toll on the crew as well. Dr. Alex Rivera sat in his lab, staring at readings that defied explanation. Captain, he called over the intercom, you need to see this. Jake Murphy arrived to find Alex studying brain scans that looked more like abstract art than medical data. The neural patterns swirled and danced in impossible ways. What am I looking at? Jake asked. The crew's brains, Alex replied. They are no longer operating on normal neural pathways. Look at Tony's scan. His consciousness has partially merged with the ship's computer systems. He can access information from parallel dimensions. Jake felt a chill. He had noticed changes in himself too. Sometimes he could hear the thoughts of his crew members. Sometimes he could see through their eyes. The quantum field was connecting them all in ways that were both wonderful and terrifying. What about the physical changes? Jake asked. Alex pointed to another display. Kate Adams is aging at a different rate than the rest of us. The quantum field is affecting her personal timeline. She has experienced 6 months while the rest of us have lived 3. And Helen? Helen can see probability streams with her naked eyes now. She told me yesterday that she watched herself die in 17 different timelines during our last battle. She is becoming unstuck from normal time. Jake rubbed his temples. The responsibility of command had always been heavy, but now it felt impossible. He was leading his crew into something beyond human experience. They were becoming weapons of unimaginable power, but they were losing their humanity in the process. Sir, Helen's voice came through the intercom. I am picking up massive coalition fleet movements. They are gathering everything they have. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier. They are planning a final assault on Earth. Jake made his way to the bridge. His crew looked up at him with eyes that held depths of experience no human should possess. They were still his people, but they were becoming something more. Report, Jake ordered. Helen Price stood at her station, her eyes closed as she navigated probability streams. The coalition has assembled over 3,000 ships. They are bringing their planet-killer weapon, the Star Eater. If they reach Earth, humanity will be extinct within hours. Ryan Cole checked his weapon systems. His hands moved with impossible precision, guided by quantum intuition. Sir, we cannot fight 3,000 ships, even with our abilities. We do not have to fight all of them, Jake said. We just have to stop the Star Eater. Dr. Rivera approached him with a grave expression. Captain, if we engage a fleet that size, we will have to push the quantum lock system to its absolute limits. The crew might not survive the transition. Jake looked at his people. Lisa Barnes was monitoring quantum readings that existed in multiple dimensions. Tony Wells was communicating with versions of himself from parallel timelines. Kate Adams was simultaneously 25 and 30 years old, depending on which quantum state you observed. They were no longer entirely human, but they were still his crew. They had volunteered to save humanity, knowing the risks. "All hands, prepare for maximum quantum displacement," Jake announced. "We are going to end this war." The Coalition fleet hung in space near Earth like a metal storm cloud. "Hi, Commander." Vex Stoll stood on the bridge of his flagship, the massive dreadnought Oblivion's Edge. Behind him, the Star Eater powered up its reality-destroying weapons. "Soon," Vex Stoll said to his officers, "humanity will be nothing but a bad memory. Their ghost ship cannot protect them from this." But even as he spoke, sensors began detecting impossible readings. Space itself seemed to bend and twist as something approached from quantum dimensions. The Nightfall did not arrive like a normal ship. It materialized from probability itself, existing in so many quantum states simultaneously that it appeared as a storm of light and shadow. The crew had pushed their consciousness so far beyond human limits that they were becoming living equations. "All ships, fire." Vex Stoll commanded. 3,000 Coalition ships opened fire at once. The space around Earth lit up like a new sun, as energy weapons discharged with enough power to crack planets. But the Nightfall was no longer bound by normal physics. It existed in quantum superposition, splitting into hundreds of probability echoes. Some were destroyed by enemy fire, but others struck back from angles that existed outside normal space-time. Jake Murphy felt his consciousness expand across multiple dimensions. He was simultaneously commanding the ship, dying in enemy fire, and watching the battle from the perspective of future historians. The quantum field had made him into something that existed in all possible states at once. "Target the Star Eater," he ordered, his voice echoing from several timelines. The crew responded with abilities that transcended human understanding. Ryan Cole fired weapons that existed in parallel dimensions, striking the planet killer from directions that made no sense. Kate Adams became a quantum storm of destruction. Her consciousness spread across 17 different realities. Helen Price navigated through probability streams, piloting the ship along paths that led to victory in the maximum number of timelines. Tony Wells coordinated the attack by communicating with versions of the crew that existed in alternate realities. The Star Eater, the Coalition's ultimate weapon, died in a burst of quantum fire that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Its destruction sent shockwaves through space-time that the Coalition fleet could not comprehend. "Impossible," Vex Stoll whispered as his screens showed readings that broke his understanding of reality. "They are attacking us from inside our own ships. How can weapons appear from nowhere?" But the Nightfall was no longer just a ship. It had become a manifestation of human will made quantum, a living expression of the refusal to surrender. The crew had transcended their physical limitations to become something that existed partially outside the normal universe. The battle ended not with explosions, but with the simple acceptance of inevitability. The Coalition fleet surrendered, because continuing to fight seemed pointless against an enemy that could rewrite the laws of physics. As the surviving Coalition ships retreated, Jake Murphy realized that they had won the war. But the victory had come at a cost that no one had anticipated. His crew was no longer human in any meaningful sense. They had become something beyond mortality, beyond normal existence. They were quantum beings who existed in multiple realities simultaneously. They had saved humanity, but they could never be part of it again. The war was over, but the peace that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever known. On Earth, people celebrated in the streets. Parades were held for the crew of the Nightfall, the heroes who had saved humanity from extinction. But that Heroes themselves could not attend their own celebration. Jake Murphy stood on the observation deck of the Nightfall, watching Earth turn slowly below them. His reflection in the window was strange now. Sometimes he appeared solid, sometimes he seemed to flicker like a bad hologram. The quantum field had changed him so much that he could barely maintain a single physical state. "We won," he said to the empty room. But his voice echoed from multiple dimensions, and he was not sure which version of himself was speaking. Dr. Alex Rivera appeared beside him, though appeared was not the right word. Alex existed in several quantum states simultaneously now. His consciousness had expanded beyond normal human limits. "Did we win?" Alex asked. "Or did we become something else entirely?" Jake did not have an answer. They had saved humanity, but they were no longer part of it. The quantum technology had transformed them into beings that existed partially outside normal reality. "The crew wants to see you," Alex said. Jake made his way to the bridge, though walking was difficult when you existed in multiple places at once. His crew was assembled, but they looked like ghosts of their former selves. Helen Price stood at her navigation station, her eyes closed as she watched probability streams that only she could see. "I can see all the possible futures now," she said. "In most of them, humanity spreads across the galaxy. They become the dominant species, respected and feared by all others." "What about us?" asked Tony Wells. His voice came from the ship's communication system as much as from his mouth. He had merged so completely with the Nightfall's computers that it was hard to tell where he ended and the ship began. "We become legends," Helen replied. "Stories told to children about the ghost ship that saved the world. Most people will not believe we were real." Lisa Barnes worked at her engineering station, monitoring quantum readings that existed in 17 dimensions. "The ship is stable," she reported, "but we are not. Our consciousness is spreading across too many realities. We are becoming too quantum to maintain physical form." Jake felt the truth of her words. Each day, it became harder to remember what it felt like to be fully human. The quantum field had given them incredible power, but it had taken away their humanity in return. "Captain," said Kate Adams, "what happens to us now?" Jake looked at his crew, these brave people who had sacrificed everything to save their species. They had become living weapons, quantum beings who existed in multiple realities at once. They were more powerful than any force in the galaxy, but they were also alone in ways that no human had ever been before. "We cannot go home," Jake said. "Earth is for humans, and we are no longer entirely human." Dr. Sam Foster spoke from the medical bay through the ship's intercom. He could no longer maintain solid form for more than a few minutes at a time. "Our bodies are breaking down on a quantum level. We exist in too many states simultaneously. Eventually, we will spread across so many dimensions that we will lose all coherence." The bridge fell silent. They had won the greatest victory in human history, but they were dying from it. "Sir," Ryan Cole said, "incoming transmission from Earth Command." Admiral Clark's face appeared on the screen, but he looked confused. "Captain Murphy? We are having trouble with the transmission. You keep flickering in and out." "We are having technical difficulties," Jake lied. "Captain, the President wants to award you and your crew the highest honors. The entire planet wants to thank you. When can you come home?" Jake felt his heart break across multiple dimensions. "We cannot come home, sir. Our mission is not complete." "What do you mean?" "The war is over." "This war is over," Jake corrected. "But there will be others. Humanity will need protectors as it spreads across the galaxy. Threats that normal ships cannot handle." Admiral Clark frowned. "Captain, you have done enough. You and your crew deserve to rest." "We cannot rest," Jake said. "We are no longer capable of normal life. The quantum field has changed us too much. We exist partially outside reality now. The transmission ended. Jake turned to his crew, these people who had given up their humanity to save humanity. "What are your orders, sir?" Helen asked. Jake made his final decision as captain of the Nightfall. "We continue our mission. We become guardians of human space. When threats arise that normal ships cannot handle, we will be there." "And when we finally lose coherence?" asked Alex. "Then we will fade into legend," Jake replied. "But until that day, we protect our people." The Nightfall began to move, sliding between dimensions like a ghost. The crew settled into their new existence as quantum beings, protectors who watched over humanity from outside normal reality. Years passed, decades. The Nightfall appeared, when humanity faced impossible threats. Pirates who thought they could raid human colonies found themselves facing a ship that could attack from multiple dimensions. Alien warlords who planned to enslave human worlds discovered that some protectors could not be fought or reasoned with. Crew grew more distant from their human origins with each passing year. They communicated through quantum entanglement rather than speech. They existed in so many realities simultaneously that individual identity began to lose meaning, but they never forgot their purpose. They were the guardians, the protectors, the quantum ghosts who ensured that humanity could grow and prosper in a dangerous galaxy. Children unhuman. Worlds grew up hearing stories about the Nightfall. Some said it was just a legend. Others claimed to have seen it flickering at the edge of sensor range, watching over them. The truth was both simpler and more complex. The Nightfall was real, but it existed in so many quantum states that reality itself had trouble containing it. Its crew had become something beyond human understanding. Quantum beings who had traded their mortality for the power to protect their species. They were no longer human, but they were still heroes. They had chosen to become legends so that humanity could have a future, and in the vast darkness of space, between the dimensions of normal reality, the quantum-locked human warship continued its eternal patrol. Its crew had become one with the quantum field itself, existing as pure consciousness spread across infinite possibilities. Sometimes, when human ships traveled through the deepest parts of space, their sensors would pick up strange readings. Energy signatures that appeared and disappeared without explanation. Weapon discharges from empty space that destroyed pirates and raiders. Before vanishing again, the crews of these ships would report their experiences to Earth Command. But the reports were always filed away as sensor malfunctions or space phenomena. Few people believed in ghost ships that protected humanity from the shadows, but the threats kept disappearing. Alien invasion fleets would assemble at the edge of human space only to be found weeks later as drifting wreckage with no explanation for their destruction. Criminal organizations that preyed on human colonies would simply vanish overnight, their ships found empty and adrift. The galaxy learned to fear humanity not just for their technology or their determination, but for their mysterious protectors. Other species whispered about the quantum guardians, beings that existed outside normal reality, but struck with the fury of gods when humanity was threatened. On Earth, in the deepest vaults of human command, classified files told the true story. The Nightfall and its crew had become something beyond mortal understanding. They were humanity's first step into a larger universe, quantum beings who had transcended physical limitations to become eternal guardians. Dr. Alex Rivera had been right in his final report, filed before his consciousness spread too far across dimensions to maintain coherent thought. Humanity was evolving, and the crew of the Nightfall were the first to make the transition from physical beings to quantum consciousness. They had paid the ultimate price for humanity's survival. They had given up their mortality, their ability to touch and be touched, their capacity for normal human relationships. But in return, They had become something that could never truly die, never truly fail in their mission to protect their species. The Nightfall itself had become more than a ship. It was a living equation, a manifestation of human will and determination made quantum. It existed in all possible realities simultaneously, ready to appear wherever and whenever humanity needed protection. And so the legend continued. Children heard stories of the ghost ship that saved their grandparents. Scientists studied impossible energy readings that suggested something was watching over human space. Military commanders planned their strategies knowing that somewhere in the quantum shadows, guardians stood ready to intervene when normal forces were not enough. The crew of the Nightfall had become exactly what they had always been meant to be: humanity's shield against the darkness. Quantum protectors who would defend their species until the end of time itself. They were no longer human, but they were humanity's greatest achievement. They had proven that when pushed to the brink, humans would not just adapt or survive. They would transcend every limitation, break every rule, and rewrite reality itself to protect those they loved. The quantum-locked human warship sailed on through dimensions that existed between thoughts and dreams, crewed by beings who had chose